everyone, welcome to the channel. I am still using the Make Special Cards issue 14 Christmas card kit. Oh, that's a mouthful. So I've picked some of the pattern papers and I'm just mounting them onto white cardstock to give them a little border. And that's really just to separate the patterns because there's quite a lot going on in the patterns. And I decided to use this stripy paper first because it's not my style and I thought it would be the most difficult to use. I'm just adding some little die cut leaves. The pine sprig one comes in the kit. The other one is just a die that I had in my stash. I can't find the name of it, sorry. That you could just use any leaves that you've got. Now I arrange 3 little buttons to look like berries and a little bow in the corner. And I'm just going to add on these little buttons. I just decided I wanted to add something to the card to bring in the red of that bow because it was a little bit brighter than the background. And I also wanted to use up some buttons. And that's pretty much this card finished. Now I'm moving on to the second card. I've cut this pattern paper diagonally because I'm going to mount it on the card that way, and I wanted the pattern on the paper to line up with the diamond shape, I suppose. And I'm going to mount it onto some of that stripy paper again. And I think about using a bauble, but I decide against it. And I go for this snowman topper. I like it because it's got the pink that's in the background paper. And I'm going to pop that up on foam and some double-sided tape, or that dot roller thing that I've been using. And I just mount the background paper onto my card base, and then I mount my little cluster in the centre at a diagonal. And now I'm just considering if I want to add anything to the background, and I'm going through my Christmas box and I find these lime green stars, and I decide that I quite like those, and I'm going to use that little topper flag, so I just mount that on some white and I trim around it. That's just to make the pattern stand out from the rest of the card because it's the same as the background pattern. And I'm going to mount it with some foam, stick some sticky stuff on it. And now I'm just going to add some snowflakes and glue down those stars. That's the second card finished. Moving on to the third card, I use a bit more of that stripy paper. Just trimming down the card base because they're not always square. Then I go for this Christmas Wishes topper. And I've trimmed the border off of this, by the way, because the border was wonky and it was driving me bonkers. And I've put glossy accents on that Christmas Wishes bit of the panel. Not glossy accents, it was Nouveau Crystal Glaze. And I'm just going to add in some little gems. And I think I've added some snowflakes in the background as well. Those are just the table sprinkles that you get in like Morrison's or snowflake packets. I'm just placing a few of these little rose gold gems into the centre of the snowflakes on the panel. And then I commit to those snowflakes in the background and glue them down. I think I'm using my Stick It PVA glue pen here. I'm actually really enjoying this glue pen, I was quite surprised. And then I add 3 more of those little gems to the centre of the snowflakes, just because the background felt a bit plain, even though it's got all those stripes going on. And I cut out some of these snowflakes, and I think I used 3 of those in the background. It does take a little while to cut these out, but I think it's worth it because it just adds something to the card. I wanted to bring that kind of more orange tone of the Christmas wishes part of the topper into the background, so I thought adding this rose gold colour would be a nice transition. There is that colour in the background, but it's not that prominent, so I'm just kind of adding to it, I suppose. And I think I'm adding those gems again to the centres of the snowflakes. There we go. On to the next card, using that background paper again, and it's a little bit too short, so I just cut off a little strip and add it to the top. Totally cheating is fine. It's my card, no one will ever know, apart from you, all of you. So I go for the diagonal idea again, and this time I just use plain cardstock, but I've gone around the edge with diamond stickles, and I'm going to use these bauble cutouts that I made before, and I'm just going to embellish the outsides. Those baubles are the ones from Poppy Stamps, and I've added those little tiny, they're like sequins without the middle. I think they're called confetti. I got them in Morrison's with some snowflakes last year. And I'm using this little string from Hobbycraft that it come in a Christmas ribbon pack. It's a real pain in the neck to use because as soon as you cut it, the fibres just go everywhere, they just separate. So I coat it in this multi-matte medium and I let it dry, and then I come back and stick them down. And I'm just leaving the ends hanging off there for a little while, and then I chop them, and that was just so the glue could set into the fibres. So yeah, if you're struggling to cut down, to stick down string, I suggest just coating it in that multi-matte medium and leaving it for a little while. And I think I skipped through putting down the confetti in the background just because that would just take forever for you to watch. But I've just, on the pattern paper there was some white dotted pattern in the stripe, and I just covered that up with the sequins just to tie it in with those baubles really. And I had another one of these with love sentiments, but I didn't want the pattern, so I just cut that off. Now I decide I want to do a card with kind of like an aperture in it. So I've had this scrap of this stripy paper and I've die cut a circle. I think I used one of the MFT stitch circles. And I cover the background in this angel hair, but because it's see-through, I use the panel to hide the adhesive. So I've just double-sided sticky taped it to the panel, and now I'm hiding tape behind the panel to stick it to the card. Hopefully that makes sense. Just pinning off all the backing takes forever, even when it's sped up. So I've got that stuck down. I just trimmed the edges of the angel's hair. And I made these snowflakes off camera. They're basically just double-sided sticky tape on the back of the negative, I suppose, of the baubles that I cut out earlier. And I just burnished on some glitter and cut around the edge so you get a hint of the pattern but not a lot of it. And then I'm going to use this little flag, and I'm just putting some foam and some adhesive on the back of that to pop it up. If you guys want a tutorial about how to make those baubles, I can do that separate. I just didn't want to make these videos any longer. Now I need some string for them to hang, so I have a look through my stash and see what I have. I think I go with some baker's twine in that red colour. Yeah, I do. This bauble had a little hole on it, so I decided to use that to my advantage. And the other one didn't, so I'm just sticking it behind the bauble top. And I'm doing that multi-matte medium thing again. I might be using this glue instead, but it's the same principle. And then just hold it down for a few seconds. I decide to tie a little bow, so I have to lift the string up again. So I just go in and add a bit more glue. Now I decide that I want to put a couple of snowflakes in the middle of these baubles. And then I go back and trim off the strings, and that's the card finished. So I'm just using some of this really pretty snowflake pattern. I really like this one. And I'm using this little strip that I've got left from the stripy paper. And then I decide to use these borders just to give a nice edge to that little horizontal panel. Oh no, wait, that's vertical. Oh dear, it's one of them days. Anyway, moving on. I'm sticking down some double-sided tape because I want to use some of that sparkly trim from my stash, and that I believe I got in the range last year or the year before. I don't know. My mum is the ribbon hoarder, so whenever she wants to buy ribbon, she tells me that I need half of it, so to justify it. Anyway, I found another topper. I'm just mounting that with foam. It's another one of those squares without the corners and the little deer. And I'm thinking about a bow here, and I think I'll decide against that. So I'm having a look again in my Christmas box, see what I want to add. And I found some more snowflakes. I've got hundreds of these things, so I'm not going to run out until I die probably, unless my mum comes and raises my stash. And I've got some little punched out ones that are just punched out of white paper. Sometimes when I get envelopes, I'll just punch snowflakes out of them, like, you know, when you get junk mail and stuff, just because I hate wasting paper. And that's that card finished. It's very pretty with all the snowflakes. This is a really simple card, so I've just gone for that snowflake paper background again, and I've got this gorgeous satin ribbon in my stash, and it's been there forever. And I think the reason why I haven't used it before is because it's so wide, but in a way that's kind of a blessing when you want to do a simple card, because it adds quite a big statement, especially if you do a bow like I'm doing here. And once I get a bow that I like, which takes me a couple of attempts, I just trim off the edges at an angle. I love those Tim Holtz scissors for cutting ribbon. It doesn't fray them because they're so sharp, and yeah, I just love them. If you don't have a pair, I seriously suggest you get some. And I use a little bit of scrap of the ribbon from the tail just to mount on the card with double-sided tape as a resting spot for my sentiment. And I go with the 'Tis the Season. In the same snowflake pattern. Now I'm sticking down my bow with a glue dot. And I'm going to mount this topper on some foam and stick that on my card. And I just reinforced the bow with a bit of that liquid glue. And there's that card finished. Now this card is really quick. It's literally background paper, a diamond, and this topper mounted on some foam. And that's it. Really simple, anyone can make that, but it still looks pretty. Okay, I am getting some more of that deer paper. I'm using up this scrap strip. Gonna stick that on horizontal. Trim my card base, make sure it's straight. Obviously guys, when you're trimming your card bases, make sure you don't trim the hinge where the fold is. Ask me how I know. Anyway, I found this little tag and I really like it. So I'm going to attach it onto this horizontal panel with a bow. I've not got a lot of that ribbon left, but I really like it. So I decided that I'm going to use it on this card. So I've got some double-sided tape. Going to stick that down vertically. It's kind of off center. I did mean to do that, but it just looks funny right now because I haven't finished the card. So I'm cutting down some foam to put on the back of that tag. It's a little bit fiddly because I want to, oh excuse me, I want to avoid the hole. And I want to make sure those little flag ends are supported. I'm just sticking down the bow with a glue dot and a little bit of glue. Then I add these little twig sprigs from the dies in the kit. And I've also got these holly leaves that I've cut from the dies in the kit as well. And those holly leaves, I've mounted them onto some copy paper, you know, like for printers. And I've just used that to hold the centres together because it actually die cuts out the middle. I didn't want to have holy holly. And then popping this up with some foam and some double-sided tape. I stick one of the holly leaves up on this little bits of foam, and the other one I stick directly down just so that they overlap, like they would on a plant, I guess. And then I stick down my tag. Add another sprig. Now I'm having a rummage through my drawer. I find these really sparkly gems. They're like glitter gems and they're perfect for the berries. We're getting close to the end now, guys, of my marathon, and I've still got so much stuff left. I haven't even touched a third of the kit. So I used the tree background paper, a little bit of scrap of that deer paper, and I find this topper that's the same pattern as the tree and I want to use it on this, but I feel like it's a little bit plain, just that. So I have this gold tree that was in my stash and I coloured it with an Apple Pro marker to make it green. And I add some of those red gems to look like baubles, and I found a green star sticker from my stash. I have no idea where that comes from, but you could literally use any star sticker. And I'm going to tie a bow out of this ribbon and stick that to the tag just to add another element of white. And I have this scrap of snowflake paper, which I really like. So I just add that in for another bit of white. And to kind of ground that tree. Now I'm adding a bit of foam to the back of the tag, avoiding the hole, and I mount that. And that's that card finished. That was a really quick card, used up some scraps. Now this card, I lost some of the footage unfortunately, but I literally just stuck down that panel on sort of 2/3 of the card of the right side, and I've added this ribbon with some double-sided tape, and the double-sided tape is just under the white bit because it's organza and I didn't want the tape to show through. And I'm adding that little Christmas tree topper that's from the kit, and I've covered that in frosted lace stickles, and I've got these white circular gems that I'm just adding to the centre of the ribbon and the side of that panel, and I'm going to put them on the top of the white Christmas trees to look like stars. I add in a couple of dark green sprigs in a couple of clusters, and that's got some kind of clear chunky glitter on a couple of those sprigs just for something different. And I decide for a sentiment I'm going to use a peel off sticker, and I have a play with a few ideas, and I settle on this chunky but really whimsical Merry Christmas. And that's my card finished. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you're really enjoying this series, and I would love it if you could leave me a comment and like my video. And if you haven't already subscribed, I'd really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching. Bye!